About a year ago, I talked about doing a handwriting course. When I started the PAC in astrology course, I said at the end of that course there would be some handwriting stuff so you can look up all this stuff that we're learning in this course in the handwriting. That course, that PAC in astrology course, became a lot longer than I originally planned. We covered a tremendous amount of information, so I thought it best to finish that course, stop it without the handwriting, and instead do a separate handwriting course, which is the course I'm starting with this video. And this course, because it's going to be a separate course, is not just going to cover a small part of handwriting, it's actually going to be a full-fledged handwriting course. So I'm going to cover everything I know about handwriting, okay? It's going to be a very large course, okay? You don't need to know astrology to take this course. You do need to know some psychology to take this course, which I will instruct you to have, towards other videos that I've made to help with that part. There will be parts in this course where I talk about astrology, but if you don't know astrology, you can skip through those. If you know astrology, you can see how these two systems are mirroring each other. Okay? Now, handwriting is such a fantastic thing. It really can show so much about a person. And when you learn how to analyze someone's handwriting, you will blow people's minds. Like, absolutely blow their mind. When people come to an astrologer, they have this expectation, astrology is all about predicting the future and reading you and all this stuff. People have an idea of what astrology is. So they go there, have this expectation, and they go, wow, that was amazing. But they were expecting that. When you look at someone's handwriting, you read it and they're like, whoa, how is that even possible? It totally blows their minds more than doing astrology reading. Okay? It would be like if somebody never knew about astrology and you simply asked them for their birth time, date, and place and started telling them all this stuff about themselves, they would blow their minds. That's what you get to do with handwriting. And you get to do it very easily, very simply, with a lot less studying, with no complications of is it the right birth time, etc., etc. You have it in a concrete form right in front of you, everything you need on one piece of paper. And from that, the things you can tell will blow your mind. Okay? In fact, there's a lot of things I can tell from the handwriting in a glance that are going to take me 20 minutes to look up in the, maybe not 20 minutes, but it would take a lot of work to figure out in an astrology chart. So there's a great benefit to learning handwriting, okay? It's also great because you can use it casually. You can be sitting around at a party, on the bus, on an airplane, casually talking, and you can just read someone's handwriting for fun and blow their mind, So, it's a great, great tool. It's something I always wanted to get into. A few years ago, I finally dove into it, and it's been a huge asset for working with people, for, working with myself, for sure. Okay? So how does handwriting work? People wonder, how does it work? Essentially, handwriting is nothing other than reading someone's body language. Body language is, our mouth says one thing. Even people's facial expressions can show another thing. People can rehearse facial expressions. Words can say all kinds of stuff, But body language is always conveying the truth of who a person is. And we're completely unaware of it. And body language has been developed to a small degree, but not to the subtle degree that handwriting is. Handwriting is body language. It's not body language of when I'm talking. It's body language of when I'm communicating with writing. So this is what I'm communicating with writing. But the thing we're always communicating to people, whether it's our body language or our handwriting body language, you're always communicating one essential thing. We're communicating who we really are, who we truly are in that moment in time. And the handwriting captures that body motion, that body movement, into a script, You know, you write your letter a certain way because your body's moving that way as you're talking. You know? So basically, we have a snapshot, a crystallized form of their body language that we can take all the time in the world we want to study. Now, if we're watching someone speak and we learn to read their body language, things are moving so fast we can't even capture it all. We literally have to catch it on video and watch it frame by frame. And it's not a very well-developed science. You know, probably the people who can read body language best are the champion poker players. The champion poker players are almost always the same handful of guys get to the top at the Poker World Championships. Because they're the ones that have learned to read the truth of a person no matter how they're acting. That's one of the, you know, it's called the tell, you know, the famous poker tell. That's just body language. It's just the person's really telling you the truth of themselves no matter what games they're playing. And that's what handwriting does. It's the truth of who a person is. Our body language is always telling the truth of who we are. And handwriting has taken this and developed it to a very clear science. A statistically replicable science where the FBI uses it, corporations use it for hiring people. People have solved cases using handwriting. You know, pointed the police or the FBI to, it can only be this person. And then when they investigate that person, it is that person. So, our body language is telling everyone who cares to watch exactly who we really are, truly. And that can be our body language, or it can be the body language of our handwriting. Okay? Our brain, our conscious and unconscious minds work together to write a picture of body language in our handwriting of who we really are. And yes, we can look at the chart and we can see who a person really is. And we got these planets. And they're all working together to show this picture of who the person is. And you got this good planet and this bad planet, and this planet that's somewhat good and somewhat bad. As an astrologer, we have to integrate all that into the whole picture of the person. And now make an assessment of that person. And sometimes that's very difficult. Because you got this yummy thing and this yucky thing, and you're like, ugh, how's this all going to play together? And sometimes it's not clear. That's where handwriting really helps the astrologer. You just pop open, you just look at the handwriting, and boom, in 1 minute, you know what parts of their charts they're playing out at this time in their life that they wrote that down. Okay? Handwriting will change as people are playing out different things in their chart. Their handwriting will change. Okay? And we can see in the here, in the now, what is this person, how is this person living, who are they now? What can I count on? What can I not have expectations for? You know, should I run? Should I stay? Am I compatible with them or incompatible? We can also tell that with handwriting. Okay? So, it's all the stuff in the chart comes together into one picture on a page of paper in a way that you can simply understand. So it's a beautiful science. Now, astrology is complex. It's difficult. There's so many different things happening in the chart because we're seeing their whole life in that chart. And that makes it a huge picture. Not only seeing their whole life in that chart, and not just one moment of time, we're also seeing their whole life in regards to so many things. It's just such a huge picture. It's hard to integrate it sometimes into a useful whole. With handwriting, we never have that problem. The picture is the here and now, how they're operating now. And that's all you need to know. It doesn't matter how someone's going to operate in the future. We need people to operate a certain way now. We need to operate a certain way now. That's what matters, okay? How we might operate in the future, it don't matter, okay? Okay, so with our body language, which means with handwriting, we are advertising, we are telling people, we are screaming at people who we really are. And we don't even know it. And if you learn handwriting, you'll be able to read the truth of a person better than they know themselves. Because a lot of these truths a person is telling us about who they really are includes what the unconscious mind is driving them towards. And these are things they oftentimes don't even know they're doing, but they're going to do it anyway. And the people around them are going to experience them doing those unconscious things. And the handwriting is going to show it right there. So you will know the person better than they know themselves when you learn handwriting. Okay? And you can do it in one course, That's going to take a few months of study. It's not going to take 20 years of your life to study. Okay? And it'll be clear. And when you see something in handwriting, you can say it and it'll be correct every time. There'll be no and, ifs, or buts. What every handwriting person has always learned to say, they've always approached handwriting in the beginning. It's natural. We give a person the benefit of the doubt. We see something in the handwriting and we give them the benefit of the doubt. And every handwriting expert has always come to the conclusion, I will never question handwriting again. Because every time they questioned it, boom, the very thing that was in that handwriting was exactly what happened. Okay? And some of these things are just shocking. Okay? So, it's a fantastic thing. One of the things you're going to get out of this course that you're not going to find in any other handwriting course is the stuff that I've researched and developed in handwriting that hasn't been researched and developed yet. And what that essentially is working with the sounds of the letters. So why? It has a sound. Every letter has a sound. And in astrology, we know that every planet rules a set of sounds. Like Mars, for instance, rules the guttural sounds, like G and Ka. Okay? So the phonetics are ruled by the planets, different sounds of letters. So when we see something going on in a letter, we're going to learn how to identify what planet that is. Through doing that, we're going to understand that letter on a deeper level than most handwriting experts grasp, because we're bringing in a deeper understanding of that letter through the sound. So we're going to be having a phonetic aspect to this course, so we can go deeper. Also through doing this, when you look at a chart and you see something going on with a certain planet, you're going to know right away there's something going on in a certain letter in their chart, because that letter has the sound of that planet. Okay? So say you've got a planet that's in an avustion, it's mixed, and you don't know which way is it going to swing. Can I count on this planet, or is it going to disappoint? Well, now you already know you'll learn what letters to focus on to kind of get the clarity of that. And even if you never look at a horoscope, just understanding the sounds and what the sounds mean. Like for instance, G and Y are letters that have to do with sexuality. The tails of the G and Y. Really the tails on any letters that go below what we call the baseline, that drop down, like the tails of Y's and G's and all those letters. They all have to do something with our sexuality. But a G and a Y doesn't say the same thing about our sexuality. What's the difference? Well, by applying the science of the sounds, we'll know that Y has to do with the moon and G has to do with Mars. The guttural G. And so now we can analyze the sexuality on a deeper, more precise level. So that's one of the unique things we're going to learn in this handwriting course that you're simply not going to find anywhere else. Okay? So I will be looking at some charts. I will be talking about some charts, and showing correlations. But if you don't use astrology, you can just skip that. You don't need to use astrology to use handwriting, and you don't need handwriting to use astrology. But personally, I love knowing both, because it makes my job easier to sometimes just glance at the handwriting. Okay? The other reason I really like to use the handwriting is because one thing everyone's always looking for is remedies. How can I fix this? How can I change this? Okay? Well, what you do with handwriting, you have a built-in remedy. Okay? And that is that if you change your handwriting, it will change your brain. It'll reprogram your brain. it'll clear out your unconsciousness. Changing your handwriting from a letter that's not working, from a pathological something in your handwriting, to something that works and achieves the goals you want. By changing your handwriting, you can literally change your life. And you're changing it by reprogramming. If you're constantly attracted to people that hurt you, your handwriting is going to show that. And by changing that in your handwriting, you'll stop being attracted to the people who hurt you. And you can start being attracted to the people who are there for you. Okay? So also as part of this course, we're going to learn handwriting therapy, essentially. Okay? So that's one of the great things about handwriting. You have a remedy right there. It's a free remedy. No one has to shell out money for a puja or buy gemstones or anything. All they need is a pencil and paper and 15 minutes a day, even 10 minutes a day to practice their handwriting. Okay? And in doing that, whatever your problem is can start to melt away. Okay? All right. So, I want to... okay. So in this course, there's going to be two parts. The first thing is we're going to learn what's called the Gestalt. Gestalt is a system of a handwriting that looks at the entirety of the script. Okay? And it's essentially the foundation. There's some handwriting people that only use the Gestalt method, and they don't pay any attention to the other factors. They just look at the holistic aspect of the writing. Okay? That creates the foundation. We really, really have to start with that foundation. If that foundation's solid or wobbly, will have a huge impact on how the other indicators are going to impact the person. A bad indicator on a solid foundation will not be a serial killer. But a bad indicator on a wobbly foundation may be a serial killer. Okay? And yes, it's easier to pick out a serial killer with handwriting than it is with astrology. Okay? That's one of the fun things to do, actually, is looking at the handwritings of serial killers. And you just see the stuff. It's just textbook there. Okay? So, first we're going to learn the foundation of what's called the Gestalt. Germany has especially developed this aspect of handwriting. Okay? In some parts of Europe, they only use this. Okay? And handwriting is much more respected in Europe. You can go to college to become a handwriting expert, to get a degree in what's called graphology. Okay? So, and then there's the indicators. The indicators are all the various ways a person can essentially write a letter. There's millions of different ways we might choose to write a particular letter. Any way we write a letter that's different from the norm is what's called an indicator and tells us something unique about ourselves. And then we're going to learn all the indicators. Okay? It's not a lot of things to learn between all of that. Between all of that, you're going to have less than 100 things to learn, essentially. Okay? Now, after that, you're always going to see patterns that are variations of the above. And you have to have a grasp of those basics so that when there's something that's different than normal, you can interpolate and get the idea of what this means. And if you learn your basics well, that won't be hard. One of the beautiful things about doing handwriting, everyone will bring something to the page that you've never seen in a book, that you won't find in a book. And you have to use your understanding of handwriting to determine what does that actually mean. Okay? Now, that oftentimes will be something so minor you can ignore it. But sometimes it might be a major thing that you have to figure out. And learning the basics, learning what I'm going to teach in this course will give you the understanding that you can interpolate the natural result of that other shape that you see that is not in any textbook. It's impossible to textbook everything that a person might write in a letter. I mean, human creativity, when it comes to writing, everyone's a unique individual, which means everyone's handwriting is different. Something's different about everyone's writing. But you'll find there are certain things that you see more and more commonly happening in handwriting. Okay? And those are the things that are the foundation of how handwriting works. Okay? So, we're going to learn both these schools of astrology, the Gestalt and the indicator-based, because they're both very, very important. Okay? So, I want to give you all an example of what we can do with handwriting. I'm going to read to you all a letter, an email that I wrote to someone who I took a peek at their handwriting. I looked at their handwriting for less than 5 minutes. And I looked at their handwriting and 2 other very small handwriting samples of people in their life. It took less than 5 minutes to look and get all this information. It took me 20 minutes to write it out, and it's going to take me a few minutes to read it to you. But it took much less than 5 minutes for me to see all of this. So this is an example of what you can do when you learn handwriting, okay? And I'm just going to read what I wrote to this person. And the person agreed with this. They said yes, okay? They made comments on this and they were in agreement with what I stated here. So, first I started with the foundation. I'm going to cover the basic form of your writing as it shows many foundational things. You have a decent amount of space at the top of the page. This let us know that you are not hampered in moving forward because of wrong ideas about what you're supposed to be. Okay? The margin on the left is very straight. This means you follow the rules. You won't just do what you want without considering the impact on others and society. It's a nice way of saying they don't have criminal-minded tendencies. The margin is a bit close to the edge, not a lot, just a bit. This shows us that there is a bit of attachment to the past that needs to be healed, but it's not so much that you can't move forward. When you work on your handwriting, give it another 1/4 inch on the left margin to help you let go of the past and move forward at a better place. So we have a tendency to be stuck in the past or not moving towards the future properly, and we can tell that by looking at the overall picture of the handwriting. Then I tell her, you show no signs of resentment in your handwriting. It's a frustrating world. Always want to look for resentment, because if that's there, it needs to be worked on. Okay? The right margin is getting close to the edge. This means you can't wait to get to your future. It will come, but a better future depends on the focus on the now. So recognize we can't race to the future. We can only become now what the future happiness requires. Give some more space on the right margin to help with that. About the same as on the left margin. About 1 inch is balanced. So, if you're racing towards the future, you're not doing what you need to do right now to make that future work. And that's what happens. We get disappointed and we think, when I get in the future, this will work. Well, it only works if we live in the present properly now. Racing to the future essentially means racing into another problem. So we don't want to see that in the handwriting. Okay? This person only had that a little bit. It wasn't like major, but it was enough that they were going to run into some walls they don't want to run into if they don't work on it. Okay, you only went over 1 letter, a Y, in myself on line 6. What I meant by went over, they retraced 1 letter 1 time. Like they saw a blemish in it and they went and tried to fix it. Okay? That's great. It shows you are not busy looking perfect and feeling full of flaws. You're not covering up your weaknesses, inabilities, etc. This is good and honest and really important. It also shows you're not trying to manipulate others or playing games of deceit. Yes, we can look at handwriting and see if people are manipulative, deceitful, etc., pretentious, whatever. Your handwriting starts with a very slight downward tilt, just barely. This means that you're under a bit of depression. It's not a lot, hard to feel optimistic all the time, but it's very minor. Towards the end, when you start talking about meeting a guru, your handwriting goes up all of a sudden, so this gives you hope and the feeling that your life can work out. The handwriting ends more upslant than it started, which shows that you may feel a little bit down when starting things, but quickly you see the possibilities and start to get fired up. The tilt of the line, told that I need to find a guru, is just about the perfect tilt. So work on making your handwriting tilt about that much to keep your spirits hopeful and optimistic. And this is something you'll notice a lot of variation in. The tilt of people's writing. Are they writing up the page or down the page? Depending on their mood at that moment. And, feeling optimistic, feeling depressed is a very variable thing that can change from moment to moment, even hour to hour. So that's one of the things you'll really regularly see changing in a person's chart. When you see it a consistent way down, and if you see it every month and you see the writing is still the same slant, you know that there's a chronic optimism, which is great. And unless it's a chronic over-optimism, which means a person's going to run into all kinds of problems, or they have a chronic depression, which is not so great, okay? But that's one of the factors that changes the most in handwriting. All right, you have a bit of a wider space between letters and between words, just a bit wider than the norm. This means you need space inside yourself to feel okay. You need time and space to gather yourself so that all that dressing room time has more to it than just a dress. You also need space from people. You can't be overwhelmed by them and feel okay. You need breathing room. It's not a pathological thing. It's just something you need. It does not need to be changed. It's not unhealthy. Just know and respect this. So this person doesn't get that space. They're going to start feeling out of sorts, out of balance, and they're not going to be able to stand it after a while. So they have to take the time for that space. The biggest problem to address is that you are writing on a ruler. This is a result of your Mercury-Rahu-Sun conjunction, and something I'll talk to you about in detail. So the ruler means the bottom edge of the letters, they look like they put a ruler there and used the ruler to make sure their lines were so straight. Okay? What this means is that you can miss working options in your life due to always being rigid in some things instead of being flexible and fluid with what comes. It's critical to always be open to options moment by moment in order to navigate most smoothly through life. This means you may stay the course when you need to shift into a different mode, try a different option, or even try a whole new picture. But when you're on the ruler, there's a rigidity that keeps a person from doing that. Okay? To help with this, let your lines go a bit out of control, a bit of an up and down in the line. Put a ruler under it. We want some under the ruler, some above, but just a little waver, no more than 1 millimeter at most. This will help you navigate through life because life is not a straight line. You know, it's like riding a horse or being on a skateboard. You know, you got to have a flexibility to you. You have to go with the motion. The horse doesn't go like this. The skateboard doesn't go like this. The skateboard's going like this. The horse is going like this. The car is going like this. Everything is going like this in life. And so we have to let all those movements happen. And when a person's handwriting is like this, no, they don't know how to just over those bumps. And that also makes life feel harder in lots of ways. Just like if you're riding a horse and you didn't know how to move with the horse, your butt would be a lot more sore. Okay? Then you don't have a single letter crashing into lines of below or above, which is a healthy sign that you're having clarity on your intentions in life. All in all, a very solid foundation with just a couple things to work on. The only really critical one to work on is the rule of straight lines. So in this person, they had a nice solid foundation. You know, they essentially had one thing that needed work, a couple things that could use work but weren't, really detracting from her life, but with some work, her life would unfold a little bit better. So a pretty good foundation. So check, noted, keep that in mind as I look at the rest of the handwriting, okay? Because that's it's the foundation, the concrete foundation that everything's on. If it's solid, the other things are going to be in place better. Even troublesome things will do better on a solid foundation. Kind of like astrology, we do the same thing. Look at the foundation, then look at the details. Okay, so after I wrote the foundation, they asked me some things and sent me some handwritings of their ex-husband and their ex-boyfriend, okay? And so I quickly replied to these. I wanted to focus a bit on these two important men's handwritings and hope it will provide some healing to you. I'm very sorry to say it, but your ex has very sexually distorted handwriting. The G-stem reflects the primal sexuality, and it looks like a giant cock. Yeah, you heard me right. It looked like a giant phallus, okay? It's also too large of a G-stem. It's not enclosed, so there is never any real sexual fulfillment. It's pointing forward, which is not normal for G-stems. It's supposed to slant with the rest of the writing. This means a part of him is always looking forward to his next sexual encounter. No surprise that right after they got married, he was having multiple affairs. Okay, and it wasn't like he waited 5-10 years of disappointment. He just was always having affairs because his handwriting shows that he has an insatiable sexual desire that will never be fulfilled, and he's constantly dwelling on the next sexual encounter. Okay, and he needs a wide circle of what we call sexual partners. He's not going to be satisfied with one person. It's just not ever going to happen with that in his handwriting. And that was his most prominent thing in his handwriting, the most obvious thing. When you look at a handwriting, there's something that just jumps out because it's the most obvious. His was a giant dick. Okay? So no, these aren't marriage material people, unfortunately. Then his Y, which is the emotional component of sex, is sharp and hard. There's something hurt in him that interrupts his ability to get into sexual mood when he is in love. I can see how you found out about his affairs. He has no ability to hide things, which is a good trait, that you can't hide things, okay? Then I write her, pathologies are endless. We have to always be careful not to judge ourselves based on others' pathologies. It's important to recognize the person's pathologies, love them anyway, work within those limitations, but never demean ourselves because of what they are unable to do. In a healthy relationship, people will acknowledge their pathologies that they are working on to heal without blaming it on the other or expecting them to heal it. In this way, they can support each other to grow on to be a more loving, and then each person gains a better partner in the future. So understand that his extrasexual relationships have nothing to do with you. They are clearly indicated in his handwriting and simply the result of his own pathology. With respect to your ex-BF, like I said, he has too much wobble in his lines. That means he's going back and forth. He's not solid himself. See his capital I? It's sitting on this little bar with a big bar on top. That's him trying to look like he knows who he is, top bar, but he's not grounded in who he is, bottom bar. And then very interesting, this was a very short card, basically like some birthday or Valentine's card, some little card. And he made 3 important statements in this card out of 4 statements. 3 of them were important statements. From a romantic, loving level. And each of these important statements had ... after it. So he said, I love you, ... Which means, I love you, and the ... means, well, I don't know what that means or what to do. You are the love of my life, ... Which means, and that's a vague concept to me. And then he says, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, ... Which I interpret as, but I don't know how or why. See, when you say an important statement and it's followed by ... you're not really there. You put something ... when it's like, let's just go on a trip and see what happens when we get to Nevada. And no plans, no hotels, let's just see what happens, ... You know, we can put, let's go to Nevada and just have fun, ... You know, we're just going to explore and see. But when you say something like, I love you, ... that means I love you, I don't know what the hell's going to happen here. You're the love of my life, ... This is basically showing that, yeah, I'm all emotional about you, but it's all just, you know, it's just all emotions, and who knows what any of it's even real, and what I'm going to do with any of it. And so between these 2 things, it was real obvious to see that this guy was not in relationship mode. He wasn't going to be a suitable partner. And he was up and down all the time. He always talked and wanted her, like he was wanting to long for her and be committed to her, but when he actually finally had the opportunity, he didn't, and he ran off with another woman. Okay? And it was shown in her handwriting that nothing he said was ever going to be a reliable thing. It was right there in the handwriting. Okay? So this is a great thing to check out partners. You know, handwriting is like one of the best ways to check out a partner. In fact, if you're dating, you know, you go out with the person, and you pull a napkin off the table, and you pull out your pen, you say, write something about yourself on this napkin. And then you read it, and you either say, I have to go to the bathroom and walk out the front door, or you stay, you know? And you could do that and date safely without disappointment. All right, then I go on to say, I am going to talk about some of your strongest letter indicators that have a bearing on your love life. I is strong, well-formed, shows a very solid sense of self. It's really your anchor, your strong individual quality that has kept you from getting lost along the hard road of life. On the left side of the eye, the tail, it extends a bit further back than normal. This shows that some of your identity is still based on your experiences of your mother. We tend to do the same or the opposite of our parents. If this happens to be the true us, great. But if it's not, it's trouble. The eye reflects that. As I said, yours is very nice. It's one of the nicest I've ever come across. With that said, there is some identity based on your mother that needs to be shifted. This essentially means there's some way she's still playing at the game of life that she's doing because of how her mom was, that aren't necessarily true to herself. And in letting go of those, her life will move forward more correctly for her. Okay? And again, it was a minor thing, but it was there, so worth mentioning, because I is a very important letter. The slightest blemish on the I, we have to focus on it and mention it. Okay? With that said, there are some identity... Okay, so please think on that and to help with that, shorten the left side that extends backwards. And the very last part of the left side of the I should come back to the right a bit. That shows we learn from our mother, but we embrace what we learn from them in respect to our most true self and move forward in our lives as ourselves. This can be done as a continuing loop or as a sharper bend. Okay. You have a fluid G, which looks like an infinity symbol. This indicates a fluid mind with a lot of creativity and a mind that can embrace all kinds of possibilities. It's a very nice indicator. It's also a sign of someone who can author new ideas, develop new technologies, think out of the box. I have a fluid G. It's one of my favorite letters. The tail of the G indicates a person's primal sexuality, the need to feed. Well, we saw your X's. Remember, the X had the big dick. This guy had an insatiable need to feed. Yours is well balanced in respect to the rest of your handwriting, and it's really excellent. So there's no pathology on that part of your sexuality. It's very healthy. Perfect G and a fluid G. It's one of your best assets. It's where much of your wisdom comes from. Okay? Then we go on to Y. This letter is really hurting you. It's your largest lower zone letter. It's larger than the G, which means it's more important to you. The Y is the need to connect on a deep emotional level and the sexuality that comes from that, and sex as an act to experience emotional connection. You have a very strong need for this. It's as strong as it can be without being pathological. What that means is it's as strong as it can get without being unfulfillable on planet Earth. Okay, and always leaving the person longing. So it's as strong as it can get without being pathological. It's a strong need, but it's still a realistically fulfillable need. However, there are two blocks to your Y that are preventing this need from being fulfilled. Notice how your Y makes a nice round loop, and then when it gets to the bottom of the middle row, it goes right all of a sudden. So the Y is supposed to come up like this and cross the bottom line of the middle row letters. But this Y was going here, getting to the bottom row letters, and just going right. Far right and turning down. Or the Y would go like this, cross that line, and then come back and up this way instead of just ending here. It would go whoop and curve back to the back, backwards towards the left. Okay. Instead of coming up in a natural flow to cross above the bottom of the middle row letters, then it does one of two things. It turns down or it turns up and around, and it never points back towards the left. And points back towards the left, sorry. When it turns down, it's basically saying, this connection I need, it'll never come into my life. So that's showing her unconscious mind believes that the connection she really needs and wants, it was never going to come. And if your unconscious mind believes that, that's what you end up manifesting. Okay? The down is why it never comes, why it remains unfulfilled. When it does cross into the zone of the lowercase letters, it loops around and points to the left. This shows you try hard to get it, and so it ends up eluding you. This is you working for love. This is doing nice things, good things, etc., hoping to fulfill that connection. And it doesn't work. That curve towards the back is connection that can't move into the future. Dead ends. And one of the things she asked me is, why do I always meet people who are not available, who are dead ends? Well, left is past, right is future. The downturn of the Y shows there is an unconscious belief present that believes connection is not possible for you. And the loop back is the dead ends. You know? Not moving forward, it's a dead end. In both cases, sometimes the Y ends in a sharp point or a small jab. This indicates the mounting frustration from not getting a working connection. So Y homework is going to be very important. Write that Y as it is, but when it comes up, make a nice straight continuation to cross into the bottom of the lowercase letters, end it nicely pointing upwards towards the right as you need connection that goes into the future. But no curves and no jabs. And all the Y problems are coming from the Moon-Venus opposition in your chart. The other letter that is not contributing to your love life not working is your lowercase I. It's got a halo above it. Put a dot, just a simple dot. Not a slash or a hash, just a nice round one touch of the pen dot. This circle is making you appear to others in a certain way, that you have a certain type of love to give them. Then they try and they are not getting what they thought they were getting, and so they don't move forward with you fully. It's like when you go to a restaurant, they say we have cherry pie, and you go in, they actually don't have cherry pie. So you eat there, but you're not coming back. Essentially, it's just showing that you're advertising a kind of love that you don't have. That is not really you. So appreciate and let the love that you are flow, and the love that you're not, you don't need it. Trying to give it will just bring the wrong people into your life who will not last. We have so many concepts of what it is to be a loving being. They are all true, but each of us is a loving being in our own unique way. We are simply not able to be a loving being in all ways. We can only make relationships work that are based on us being the loving beings in the way that we are loving beings. There is some idea of being a loving being that you think is required of you, but it's not. Each of the ditches represents a kind of love we have to offer another. There are 7 planets 12 with ditches. So that means no one can give all types of love, as at least 5 ditches will not have a planet in them, and so we won't manifest that love. We need to give the love we are. It will work for those who need that love. Others, please go elsewhere. The love we are is more than enough to make our lives work. Drop that circle. You're not a saint. We call that circle a halo in handwriting. Your sinner has qualities of love needed on this planet. And that's really true to all of us. But sometimes people have to see themselves as saintly to feel they're going to get love, and that's not true. We just have to have the love that we're capable of. And then we show up with that and all our defects, and things can work beautifully. As you work on your handwriting, you will notice that some letters are easy to reform. Some will be very hard to change. Those are the ones where you are most stuck. Once it becomes normal, automatic way of writing, you will see the improvements in your life. Handwriting is a mudra. Just those ancient hand gestures that are part of ceremonies. A mudra is a motion that creates a spell of energy that shifts consciousness. By writing differently, we are applying a mudra to our lives and our consciousness, and our lives change. So please do this every day until this is how your consciousness wants to move the pen. So, like I said, that was just all that was understood at a glance at the handwriting. These were the obvious, at a glance things that my mind could pick up in a matter of less than a minute. Then it took time to write it out. There was many, many, many other indicators in this chart. I talked about the most dominant, strongest indicators. I could write another 2 hours on all the indicators in this person's handwriting because they simply had an unusual amount of indicators, which means things that deviate from the norm. Some things that deviate from the norm can be wonderful things, or they can be troublesome things. But these were the most significant deviations, the most apparent, obvious, strongest deviations. And so they're the most important things to cover with. And so no surprise, these are the things that largely are dictating where she's having problems in her life, her consistent chronic problems. Okay? So I hope that gives an idea of what we can do with handwriting. You wouldn't be able to think you could tell a person not being able to keep his, thing in his pants from the handwriting. But it is, because his handwriting will basically show it's out of his pants. He's drawn a picture of his, cock out of his pants, because that's who he is. That's what he does. The rest of his handwriting was great. In other ways, he was a great person, great husband, hard worker, devoted in many, many ways. But when it came to that part had a mind of its own, and it was living a life completely different than the rest of him. And the handwriting showed that. So I hope everyone can, get involved in this course. It's really fantastic. I mean, literally, it's something I wanted to do for 30 years. I wanted to learn handwriting for such a long time, Finally did it a while back, and I wish I had done it earlier because, wow, does it add a lot of insights. And, when I peek at someone's chart, usually I'll look and then I'll say, send me your handwriting because I'm stressed, I'm busy, I'm overworked. Having the handwriting just makes my job easier because I can focus. Okay, let's look at this plan. I can just use them both, juggle. I can just focus on the most immediate thing right now instead of trying to figure all that out with the chart, which takes me more time. And for me, I want it to be as easy and efficient, as accurate as possible. And the handwriting really adds to that. Then, of course, there's millions of things you cannot do with handwriting that astrology does. The beautiful thing about astrology is You can do everything with astrology. There's nothing else that you can do everything with. But that's also what makes astrology such a huge, cumbersome study. With handwriting, what you can do is profound, it's amazing, it's useful, and that's all you can do. And as a result, it's not a billions of years studying. It's a few months, you learn these things, you remember these things, you apply these things, and now you know it. And yes, throughout the rest of your life, you'll get better at it. You'll never stop improving in your ability to read handwriting. But you don't have to sit there and study it all the time. All you have to do is keep doing it occasionally. Every once in a while, read someone's handwriting, and you're going to continue to learn. You don't have to go back for another 500 courses. If I needed to teach 500 courses of handwriting, I would have a new website dedicated to it. But it's only going to take this one course to give you what you need, and you just need to take that and work with it, and you'll be a handwriting expert. Okay? If you're going to sign up for this course, it's going to be at astrology-videos.com. You're going to need to bring a stack of, printer paper with no lines on it. Okay? And before you take a class, so after this video, before you listen to any of the other videos, you need to take one of those pieces of paper, and on that piece of paper, write 1, 2, however many paragraphs you want about yourself. 1 or 2 paragraphs is enough. You simply have to write about yourself. It doesn't matter what you write about yourself. You can make a fake story of yourself. You can write a fantasy about yourself. You can write the truth. You can write what's bothering you. It doesn't matter. Write anything about yourself. A good, solid, large 1 paragraph or, 2 smaller paragraphs or so. However much you want on this page. Then at the bottom of the page, or not at the bottom, when you get done writing, sign your name and date it. All right, so I want you to date it and sign your name after you get done writing your 1 to 2 paragraphs. You're going to use that to analyze your handwriting as you do the course. And it's important you do that before you take the course, so you can see what your handwriting is like right now without you changing it because you just learned something yesterday. Okay? So do that right away. The rest of the paper you're going to use to create your own personal handwriting manual. So rather than me giving you a manual that shows the letter J a certain way and gives the result, I'm going to tell you the J, I'm going to write it on a board, and you're going to write it on your manual and write down the results. The reason I'm going to do it this way is for 2 reasons. One reason is when we write something down with our hand, it puts it into our memory better. It puts it in our memory better than if we type it down. The best way to get something into our memory is to write it down. Okay? The way we hold our hand assists in the use of our memory when we write. The fingers that touch, the way the energy flows through our hand, helps the memory work better in our brains than when we're going like this. And it's a handwriting class, so you better be writing, right? As you learn, what's wrong in your handwriting, when you write the results of a particular thing that I'm going to teach you, you can practice your handwriting while you're writing those results. So as you do in this class, you're going to be working on this manual. So you can watch the video and then go back and write your manual out for each video. Or you could just pause the video 1,000,000 times in the first time. But you're going to need to pause, write, unpause, listen, pause, and write. And you're going to create your own manual. As a result of creating your own manual and writing it down, by the time you get done with this course, you're going to know handwriting. If I just give you a manual and you listen to me and have fun, by the time you get done with this course, you're going to have to start studying harder. This way, when this course is over, you will have a lot of handwriting information in your head. You already know it. You might not remember all of it. You won't, but you'll remember a larger percentage of it than any other way that you can learn this. So that's what the rest of that stack is. Make it a big stack because we're going to learn a lot of things. Then you'll have it all written down. Then from there, if you want to put it into your computer, you're welcome to. At the end of this course, I'll refer you all to some books so that you can have some reference books in case you forget something. But we're going to cover the whole gambit here pretty much. Okay? Okay, and then if you haven't taken the PAC in astrology course, a lot of the psychology I'm going to show you how to find through the handwriting is all that psychology is explained in the PAC course. So there's probably about 20 videos from the PAC course that you're going to have to listen to or watch during this handwriting course. So when you have time, go back and watch those videos. So you also watch those videos. And at the top of the first page on this course, there's a list of what these videos are that you need to take from the PAC course. They're also on astrology-videos.com. It won't cost you any more to watch those videos. If you're learning astrology, I strongly recommend you take the entire PAC in astrology course at some point. But if you're just focusing on the handwriting or just want to focus on the handwriting now, there'll be a list of videos that you need to watch. Okay? And then we'll be really well on to way that in a few months' time, you're going to have the ability to, read people at a level that will blow your mind, that will blow their minds, and be very, very useful. And you too will learn to never, ever question what you see in handwriting. Everyone's going to have their experiences where you're going to give someone the benefit of the doubt, and then you're going to go back and go, I will never question what handwriting says again. And when someone is blatantly telling us that I am like this in their handwriting, we learn to listen, because we'll see what they're blatantly telling us without them even knowing they're telling us through their body language that's reflected and captured in their handwriting. We'll know that we can count on this. We can trust handwriting. We can't trust people unless what they're saying and doing matches their handwriting. Okay, thank you.